What is up, guys?
Howard, brother.
Yeah.
I think we're up and running, buddy.
Are we live?
We are.
How is it that we're live right now? Where's my producer? Where's my Ernie?
Dog, what's up, brother? Yep, good to go. All right, take us out, Howard.
All right. Well, there we go. Damn. All right. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Alarm Fantasy Football. No countdown, no nothing. But here you go. From the lightning round into Alarm Fantasy Football, Britt Flinn, Andrew Cooper. What's going on, guys? How are we today?
Fantastic. Jumping from lightning round into here, and this is one of my favorite segments, the Target Totem Pole segment. And then after this, I'm popping on with the guys over at Fantasy Pros, talk a little tight end. But dude, so pumped for the Target Totem Pole today. Britt, how you doing?
I think it's great.
You think what's great?
The totem pole. I'm really excited to talk about it because I saw a little preview because that's what happens when you have backstage access and backstage passes. And I'm really stoked to talk about it.
Oh, Dustin, that is a horrible comment there in the chat. I am dude. Come on now. That's
he
just
said,
now you just
didn't
making me sad.
strike me that.
Now you're just making me sad. All right, yes, the Target Totem Pole, that is what we are going to be talking about today. It is part of the Fantasy Alarm and NFL Draft Guide. If you guys haven't gotten yourselves a copy of that draft guide, well, get your asses over to fantasyalarm.com/draft guide. You can buy that sucker on its own for $26.99. Comes with that cheat sheet, or the smarter move, get that subscription to fantasyalarm.com. It's that same link, fantasyalarm.com/draft guide. You'll see that 7-day free trial. You'll be able to sign up for that, and then get the get yourself a little discount here. Promo code Howard gets you 50% off your first 6 months. So the Target Totem Pole is something that's it's very exciting. It's very very cool. Do we have? Are we able to share this Target Totem Pole?
Yes.
With the crowd. I don't want to get to it just yet, but
yes,
I want to
when the time comes, I can pull it up. I'll do my best to zoom in where when we're talking about certain teams, and we'll see how it looks. But yeah, I can get it up there. We're gonna throw it right
perfect. Up. Good. We will get to all of that and just and Cooper lead us through that whole segment because that's actually going to take up the majority of the show. Before we get to the introduction of what that Target Totem Pole is, obviously, we want to stay on top of all the latest news. Everybody's going to be starting up their drafts, their best ball drafting right now. Scott Fishbowl drafts actually start this weekend. I think the Buffalo draft that starts live on Friday. I'm hosting the Saturday ones in San Francisco, and I think there are a couple of others going on all around the place. So, got to make sure that you guys are on top of everything that's going on here. Britt, I think you added in a couple of news items here. Darius Slayton sees himself as the wide receiver one in the Giants offense, but let's dive into that a little bit more here because I think if there's an offense that truly lacks a number one wide receiver, I think it is the Giants. But talk to me about this, Britt.
Well, we see our good buddy Scott Frankel in the chat as the resident Giants fan, so maybe he can throw some light on this as well. But I don't know if Slayton has what it takes to be the wide receiver one. And to be honest, I don't know if anybody does because you've got Sterling Shepard, who's been hurt back-to-back seasons. Wan'Dale's coming off an ACL. He's small. Jalen Hyatt's a rookie. I don't know how well he knows the system. Not really too stoked about Hodgins. So I think that this might turn into and don't laugh at me for saying this, but a little bit of a Kansas City situation in the way that targets are distributed, with Waller being the number one target on that entire team, and then everybody else just kind of getting targets sprinkled around as needed.
Yeah, it's crazy because you can make an argument for every single one of these guys, really. Like Darius Slayton has multiple 700-yard seasons on his resume with this team, whereas Isaiah Hodgins doesn't, he had the one season last year where he kind of popped a little bit, but he was the hot hand towards the end of the year. Right. Then you have Sterling Shepard, who has multiple double-digit target games for this team, but he's gotten hurt. You got Jalen Hyatt, Fred Biletnikoff winner with all the speed. You got Wan'Dale Robinson, second-round pick. You even have Paris Campbell coming off a 100-target season with the Colts. It's like you can make as many arguments as you want. You just kind of have to pick your poison at some point. For me, I kind of like Wan'Dale Robinson. I don't know about you, Howard, if you had to pick one, but that's the guy I'm going with.
Well, I mean, I don't know what his knee looks like. I don't know what his situation is. So he's definitely not going to be my first choice out of this offense. Listen, I've said it before. I said it on the Better Morning Show. In order to be the man, you got to beat the man. I need to see who's getting the most looks, who's looking the best in camp, because I do think that this is wide open. I would love to see Jalen Hyatt take a step up. I think Isaiah Hodgins, to me, you can't turn around and say that he's not the team's number one right now, because he closed out the season as the number one, and they didn't bring in anybody. I mean, Darren Waller, fine, he's going to be the target monger tight end, but they didn't bring in anybody to help out here. And there's not, I mean, Paris Campbell, and we all know that Paris Campbell is not a number one wide receiver. He's barely a complimentary receiver.
Sure.
So,
And he's had trouble staying healthy as well, if you look at his career. So throw
This'll
another
be
injury-prone receiver in the mix.
Well, we'll sort that all out when it comes Target Totem Pole time a little later on. What do you say?
we will.
right.
We will. All right. What else we got? Alexander Madison ready to seize a bigger opportunity. Britt, you're all about the popcorn headlines here. What's going on?
Yeah, I think honestly, I didn't see a lot going on. I want to know where you found your stuff because you found much better things. But it's kind of exciting to see a guy, especially going into camp before. And we've had all these concerns about whether Madison can handle that type of workload, whether it's going to be a split between Ty Chandler and Dwayne McBride. So it's kind of positive seeing him come out and just say, I'm ready. I've been training. I think I can do this. So maybe a little of my doubts have been removed. What about you, Coop?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with Alexander Madison, he must have had some inside information coming back and signing with the team when he could have signed anywhere. He probably knew that Dalvin Cook, they were moving on from him, and he's confident in his ability and his chance to take over this job, or else he wouldn't have signed back here. That's why, for me, I'm not putting Ty Chandler and these guys ahead of him. The question is whether anybody else besides Dalvin Cook can will that position into fantasy relevance. So that's the bet you're making at that ADP. But I don't see why it's not possible.
I don't see why it's not possible either. I mean, listen, he doesn't pop as nicely in this scheme that they're running right now, because I think they also, they changed the blocking scheme 2 years ago. Once they got rid of Gary Kubiak, even throwing his kid in there, he altered the system a little bit. Gary Kubiak does that, that fantastic zone blocking scheme. He's got pulling guards. He's got tackles who are mobile and can move laterally. I was sitting there last night on the High Stakes Fantasy Advantage show with Greg Ambrosius and Tom Kesenick from the NFBC, and we were talking offensive lines. And it's amazing when you sit there and you look at an offensive line, you're just like, I don't know how they're going to even try a zone blocking scheme. They got these like big, mamba jamba guys out there who have no lateral movement. It's like one of the biggest problems that the Jets have. Mekhi Becton, dude's great, but let's face it, he's 350 pounds. He's got weak knees and he can't move laterally as well as he used to. So, it's definitely a situation that we have to look at in Minnesota. As well, to see how Madison kind of fits into that scheme. Are you guys into the zero RB truthers who are all about Ty Chandler?
I can't ever be into the zero RB bros anyway, but Ty Chandler especially, and even more especially before training camp. Can't do it.
If that turns into a full on running back by committee, the guy who scares me the most is Dwayne McBride, because he is your classic Jeremy Hill, Alfred Morris bruiser. He only caught 5 passes in all of college, but last year he had 1,700 yards rushing. Like if they decide, okay, we're just going to use everybody to their strengths, that's the guy that's going to score the touchdowns. That he's the one that worries me, because like if he's not catching passes and he's vulturing touchdowns, that could sap the entire backfield and make it all useless. So he's the one.
Where are you guys at with drafting Madison as far as like, what his current ADP is at? I mean, I've seen people forget about him in drafts a ton, and he's down in like the 6th, the 7th round. If he is the lead running back in this, on this team, he's at least a 3rd rounder.
That's the exact time that I grab him, Howard, is when I feel like everybody's forgetting about him and 20 or so backs go. And now we're looking at, I've seen situations where I got to draft like Jamal Williams or Samaje Perine, guys I know are inevitably going to be in a share. That's when I take Madison. It's that group of like Madison, Rashad White, guys like that, where I can at least paint a picture of them being a full-time back versus picking somebody I know is only going to be a part-time back.
What about you, Britt? Are you into Alexander Madison in round 3?
I don't think I can pull the trigger in round 3. I'm still worried about the Vikings rush volume. I'm worried that they're going to be in negative game script situations basically the entire season. They pretty much were last year. And we saw it play out in their rushing attempts. They were in the bottom 5 in rushing attempts per game. And if it is a little bit of a committee sprinkled in here and there, I don't feel comfortable taking him at ADP.
Okay. Another running back who's in the news right now is kind of not being ignored, but he's obviously not being taken all that seriously as a fantasy commodity. That's Rashad White from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, White came out today and said that he set a goal to be the team's first 1,000-yard rusher since the muscle hamster Doug Martin did it in 2015. I'm not going to say that he can't do it. I'd like to see if Canales is really going to give him that kind of volume. I mean, did we not just sit there and rebuild and revamp that entire Tampa Bay offensive line to protect Tom Brady? Didn't we make, key draft picks to make that happen? I mean, are we in on Rashad White? Should we be in on Rashad White?
I'm in. Like, so for me, I love Miles Sanders. The moment he goes, there's 3 guys I look at. One, Alexander Madison's part of that group. Another one, James Conner, where I just say, hey, they are clearly tanking, going through a bridge year. They're not adding pieces. They're not adding. They have no reason to sign running backs right now while they're short-term assets while they're going through this bridge year. So why can't James Conner be the guy? And Rashad White is another one where it's the same situation. If they really aren't going to bring back Leonard Fournette or bring in a Kareem Hunt, I just look around and I say, who else is it going to be? Chase Edmonds? Chase Edmonds is a cast off from a running back by committee last year team. Like, right. Yeah, I mean, sign me up for Rashad White. Britt, are you in?
Cast off from 2 teams because he signed with the
double
Broncos, and they still didn't want him.
He told the Broncos.
He told the Broncos, Miami, and he got traded away from Miami to Denver. It was terrible.
He told the Broncos he would take less money. He said, "I'll take less money," and they said, "Nope, you're gone." So,
and that's how you know that it's bad. But yeah, I'm in on Rashad White, but I'm in on him for different reasons. I don't think he's terribly efficient. Last year, he had a 3.7 yards per carry average. And even if you did rebuild that offensive line, how much are they going to respect the pass? Or are they going to stack the box? And that's what worries me about his pure rushing ability. Why I like him is because his pass catching ability. I think that Baker is going to be dump off city there. And I think he's in line for a ton of targets and a ton of passes. And when that happens, that's where his efficiency comes from. So I don't think he's going to be a 1,000-yard rusher, but he'll produce in other ways.
So, well, all right. I mean, so we're saying Keyshawn Vaughn, who, obviously he's been kind of sitting idle, isn't going to be that pass catching back. They're going to let Rashad White be that every down guy.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think they almost have to.
Yeah, Keyshawn Vaughn had every opportunity to carve out a role during that period there.
Tom Brady was like, I hate this kid. I hate rookies. Don't waste my time with him. He did not have a fair shake.
But in the current depth chart, he's behind Chase Edmonds right now.
He got COVID, and Bruce Arians just buried him under the doghouse as a rookie, right? Like, how dare you get sick? That's such a Bruce Arians thing. But the thing is, like, he was there last year, and Rashad White ended up being the guy. I mean, it's tough. I guess it could be Tom Brady. We'll have to see, but I don't know. I believe in Rashad White.
When in doubt, blame Tom Brady. That's my philosophy. All right, let's stay with the running backs. I don't care about that picture. Why don't you just sit in front of that picture there? I have a better time. I have a better time looking at the little unicorn that you got, trapped in that poor basket of yours over the door.
Yeah, after the show, I do just turn around and I look at Tom Brady until the next show. That is what I do during the day.
Really? What a horrible existence.
It's how you get ready for it. It's how you get fired up for these takes, man.
Are you sure you're looking at a picture of Tom Brady and it's not like Kevin Bacon kind of transposed onto it?
So if you look at it long enough, it does look like that.
You gotta make it's like one of those pictures where you have to like look through it and make your eyes like really fuzzy, and all of a sudden you see Kevin Bacon coming out of Tom Brady's face.
Hey, if anyone can make one of those, please send it to me. I'll send you my address. DM me on Twitter. Activate Fiasco.
Britt, I'm staying with the running backs here. Rumor mill keeps churning. Coop, if you move your cursor in that dock one more time that I have to kind of see it flashing on the screen, I'm literally going to reach in through this camera and I'm going to choke the life out of you. I'm just going to say it right now.
Okay, no more clicking.
Britt, running backs. We're still hearing the rumor mill churning right now about Dalvin Cook. For whatever reason, Jeremy Fowler from ESPN says that the Jets have quote unquote done their homework on free agent Dalvin Cook. The reason that I put this in here, I mean, obviously I think Dalvin Cook would be a great 1-year fit for the Jets, but I put it in here because the Jets, they started off as a favorite to get Dalvin Cook, and it was like plus 600. And now all of a sudden you see Miami at plus 125 being the favorite to land Dalvin Cook. Why is this story coming out? Surely Jeremy Fowler has other things that he can report on, can talk about. Like, does that kind of give you a little, kind of questioning whether or not if somebody from the Jets organization is now all of a sudden chirping a little bit, saying we're still in on Dalvin Cook. We're still looking at him.
Well, you talk about my popcorn headlines. This one, they've done their homework. Everybody's done their homework on Dalvin Cook. Come on. But no, I think that the Jets re-entered the conversation because of the anonymous offer that was made, which we all know was by Miami, and the fact that he didn't take it immediately. So I think that if the Jets were initially the favorites and were the second favorites behind Miami, that they can probably pay him a little bit more. And if they do, then they're going to take him. I'm not sure how that's going to shake out, but honestly, bringing in another weapon for Aaron Rodgers while Breece Hall gets better from that knee, that's not a bad thing. The AFC East is stacked, and you need every single weapon that you can get. And what makes it even sweeter, if you can pry him away from a team that was the favorite to get him, just icing on the cake. Coop, what do you think?
I mean, with the done your homework comments with a player like this right now, with what's going on off the field with him, I think it relates to situations that we've seen where teams sign these guys without having done their homework. And the Patriots that actually did this themselves when they signed Antonio Brown after he got released without figuring out all the stuff going on behind the scenes. And sure enough, he plays one game and then all this stuff comes out and they have to release him because of the off the field stuff. With Dalvin Cook, he's got this domestic situation going on where, based on the homework I've done, he got sued, then he countersued, and over the last couple months, things have really swung in his favor. So I think when Jeremy Fowler comes out and says that they've done their homework, he's basically saying, hey, the Jets and these teams, they've looked at what's going on, and that's not a problem. So that's not holding back this situation, and it's very possible. They're trying to get out in front of it and say, hey, by the way, we're not just doing this as a hasty decision. We've done the behind the scenes work that needs to be done to make sure this guy is actually going to stay on the field and play football, and this stuff isn't going to be a problem. So I think that's what the done your homework part is related to a guy like this.
All right, well, I'll still keep my fingers crossed for a little Dalvin Cook and Jet Green because I'm just not buying the whole Breece Hall situation. One more news item here, and this one, here we go. This is the bane of everybody's existence. Coop, you can roll your eyes. Britt, I don't know how you feel about Jawan Johnson or Chris Olave or even Michael Thomas for that matter, but here we go. Everybody's favorite pain in the ass in fantasy, making headlines again as Pete Carmichael, who's the Saints offensive coordinator, said that he would like to use Taysom Hill more as a pass catcher this season. Is Taysom Hill going to be that true tight end? Go ahead, Coop. Go ahead. Dish it out. What do you got?
Make it stop. That's it.
I wish.
Just make it stop. Take the eligibility away. He should be treated like we talked about it on the show before this. David Ortiz. That's what he is. He should be a flex only player because he's not a tight end. I don't care how many targets does he really need to get. Are we really going to be taking a 32-year-old converted quarterback to get rushing touchdowns in our tight end spot? That's not fantasy football. Make it stop.
Yeah, he's like a wart that won't go away and just keeps coming back. Like
exhausting.
And then shows up and yeah. And what really annoys me is that I think on Underdog, he's still tight end eligible, and Sellers will not shut his mouth up about Taysom Hill. He's like, I'm getting Taysom Hill in every best ball draft in the last round that I can get, blah, 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 blah. I'm so sick of hearing about Taysom Hill in my household that I wish that he would just go away. I I don't see how much volume he's going to get, honestly. I think that this is just some of the offseason coach speak. They want to make headlines. They want people to be interested in their team. When it comes down to it, he might catch a touchdown or two. I don't think he really plays a solid role.
But you've got so many other more personable guys to talk about. You could talk Olave. You could talk about Jawan Johnson. You could talk about Michael Thomas and his return. Okay, if you want to keep Alvin Kamara's name out of the headlines, fine, but you drafted Kendry Miller. You signed Jamal Williams, who is, to everybody, he's the heart and soul of any locker room. This dude has the great personality. I'd rather listen to Jamal Williams talking about chasing Pokemons around than I would to have to deal with another season of just Taysom Hill nonsense. It's just making me crazy.
But that's because he is so polarizing. He knows that it's going to get everybody fired up and angry. And anger is the strongest of emotions. And that's what gets us going.
That's how Twitter works, everyone.
Oh,
in a nutshell. And right on cue, Sellers in the chat with Taysom Hill and 5 exclamation marks.
Yeah,
so,
well, go over to
stay on brand.
Go to Instagram Threads and talk about Taysom Hill over there, please.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Another social media platform I don't need to be dealing with, and yet I'm getting an ass load of notifications already because I had to sign up.
I don't like change.
I don't like change either.
Let's just stay on Twitter. Let's
Paper
revive
money.
Twitter.
Oh, that kind of change. Yeah, me neither. All right. Well, so there you go. Some of the news headlines that we're taking a look at here. Obviously, we're dealing with the fact that there aren't a lot of news stories out there. So you got to sift through the coach speak, sift through what the hype machine is telling you. But, some interesting names here, at least, with Rachaad White, talking about him, talking about that Minnesota backfield. We got to, investigate all of this. But what we're here for today is the Target Totem Pole, and that is from Andrew Cooper. It is live right now in the Fantasy Alarm Fantasy Football Draft Guide. We keep saying it over and over again, Target Totem Pole, Target Totem Pole. What is it? I'll tell you what, when we come back, Coop's going to explain everything that needs to be explained with this, and then Britt and I are going to be talking some players and probably trying to poke some holes into all of Coop's theories, because that's how the discourse starts here, right? So we'll be right back after these messages from our friends over at RT Sports.
My first bust is going to be Davante Adams. There's 2 reasons why I'm going to be avoiding him. One, his age, and one, his QB situation. First off, his age. He's going to be turning 31 this year. There's only 2 wide receivers in all of football that are 31 or older and having production like top tier production in the top 50 wide receiver rankings, and that's DeAndre Hopkins and Keenan Allen. Those are the only 2 wide receivers that are older than him ranked in the top 50, and both of those have been struggling with injuries. So the injury bug might be coming towards Davante Adams just with that age, so that's definitely a concern for me. And then his second situation is with the QB, with Derek Carr being gone and Jimmy Garoppolo taking over. Garoppolo doesn't target downfield as much. He's more of those quick, short passes, release the ball quickly. So that's definitely a concern for Adams, especially with he relies so much what he did in Green Bay with his touchdowns. And he's currently being drafted at 17 for his ADP, so that's a bit too high of a price for me to pay for him.
Yeah, definitely a high price if you want to get Adams. I can totally understand why you'd be fading him. I actually have a former teammate of Adams as my first bust, and that is New York Giants tight end Darren Waller. He was dealt to the Giants this offseason, takes over as their starting tight end. My issue with Waller is he just can't stay healthy. He's played just 20 games the last 2 seasons because of various injuries. Now he moves to a new offense, an offense that's not going to throw quite as much as Las Vegas did. I think you could see less targets. Waller might still have a decent season, but I'm expecting his numbers to be up and down, especially compared to past years, and I just have a hard time expecting consistency from him in a move to a new offense, and with his injury issues of the past. I'm just letting somebody else deal with him. I don't think he's worth the risk.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. I'm Howard Bender. This is Alarm Fantasy Football with Andrew Cooper and Britt Flinn. And today we're featuring one of the big articles that we've got going on over in the Fantasy Football Draft Guide over at Fantasy Alarm, which, again, you can get the draft guide. Listen, all right there at the bottom of the screen. You see that ticker down there? You see that ticker down there? Check that out. Use that link. Get in there. You can buy it on its own, but you're better off getting the all pro package and use promo code Howard to get 50% off that first 6 months. So, Coop, I feel like, all right, the Target Totem Pole, this is 100% you. This is your little baby, your creation. Britt and I are just going to sit back, look pretty, and make fun of you. So
That's what you guys are born to do, right? The Target Totem Pole, guys, there's a couple tools that I've been using for a long time for my own leagues, and I brought them to the draft guide the last couple of years. The RB questionnaire, which we'll do on another show, the Target Totem Pole, a few different things. The Target Totem Pole itself is huge, not just for figuring out what guys have the most upside, but also if someone gets hurt, who's going to be the next man up. Basically, what we do with the Totem Pole is we take a big Excel sheet, which I'm going to pull up shortly, and we rank all the players in order of how we think they're going to finish target wise, who's going to get the most down to the least. Then we take those guys and color code them based on different thresholds, right? So blue guys are going to be 120 plus locked in guys like Justin Jefferson. He'll be blue because we know he's going to get 120 targets, right? After that, we set it green is 100. Yellow means maybe they have a chance at getting 100. Orange is unlikely. Red is no chance, right? So that's how we do it. We set it at those because every wide receiver one last year got 120 targets except Jalen Waddle, who had 117. Every wide receiver two last year got 100 targets except Cooper Kupp, who had 98. He had 98 targets in 8 games, which is crazy. But that's why we set those thresholds. And what we're trying to do is figure out who's most likely to hit those. And if there's nobody that's a guarantee, what kind of uncertain situations do we have where we can bet on some of these cheaper guys? It's one of the easiest ways to find locked in early guys and late breakouts. So I'm going to pull that up now. This is 2 years in a row now that we've done this on air where I do it and then we talk about it and move guys around, change colors, and try and come to a consensus so that it's not just my totem pole, it's Fantasy Alarms now. Last year I did it with John and Pemba. We had some interesting discussions this year. Let's take a look, see how it looks. So I'll pull that up now. See if we can get it to look reasonable on the screen here. Look at that. Beautiful. Let's see. And we'll do
gorgeous, darling.
So gorgeous.
We'll even do a little full screen action, give it a little extra there. Okay. So here we go. Top team, Arizona Cardinals. You guys tell me where you disagree or if we're on the same page here. So Arizona Cardinals have Marquise Brown as a guy that and again, you got to keep in mind, this totem pole is going to be injury agnostic. If somebody is currently hurt or if they're currently suspended or we can reasonably assume they're going to be suspended, then we factor that in. If they are not currently hurt, we're not going to play that guessing game. So try to keep that in mind that you can't just say, oh, well, we got to move this guy down because he's going to get hurt. Okay. So that's not part of this exercise. Marquise Brown, 120 targets. Reasonable?
It's kind of funny. I don't even know if that's reasonable.
Ooh, right off the bat. So you think that?
120 targets for Marquise Brown. Do we genuinely believe that Marquise Brown's going to come up with 120 targets? How many? What the hell happened to my sheet here? My sheet vanished here, but that's all right.
So,
what I don't understand, is he the most targeted guy on the team?
I think that's what we
should be.
That's what we should sort first. Like, is he the most? Will he be the most targeted guy on the team? That's who. We're doing two things here. We're doing 1 through 5 Well, let's lay out just the order first, and then we'll get to the colors real quick. All right. So we think Marquise Brown's 1, 2. I have it as Rondell Moore. Do you guys have somebody else there, or do you like Moore?
No, I don't like Moore, but I'm accepting him as the number 2.
Okay. 3, rookie Michael Wilson, or do we think it's maybe James Conner, Trey McBride? What do you guys think?
I honestly don't hate Greg Dortch, and that's what I was thinking when you put Rondell Moore in the second spot.
Dortch.
As as weird and as gross as it sounds, he performed really well last season. And I think if especially in this offense, I think that he could take it from more.
The problem that I had was that Greg Dortch only played when Rondell Moore was hurt. In the games where Rondell Moore was playing, he was off to the side. So it's and when Rondell Moore came back, you look at Greg Dortch's numbers and they kind of tanked. I know it's a new coach now, so he could do whatever he wanted, but it seemed to me like he was more of a next man up than he was like they didn't play at the same time. That's why it's almost like I have one on. If we're gonna put Greg Dortch on, we almost have to take Rondell Moore off.
They're the same player, but I think that he looked better when he was on the field than Rondell Moore did. That
Yeah.
I don't know.
When I was going through, I was pulling up yards per route run, all those numbers, and it kind of for me it was more. But I don't mind putting Dortch as one of the next couple guys, perhaps. But
I don't mind putting Dortch in front of Michael Wilson.
Okay.
You know, we're not
Yeah.
100% sure about him. I don't mind doing that.
Okay, so we'll put Greg
that's-
Dortch here.
That's why it's so difficult on this team too, because one, we have quarterback uncertainty.
Right.
We don't know how efficient that offense is going to be and how many targets they're going to have to go around in the first place. So just makes parsing it out really difficult.
Yeah. So in that sense, I would be willing to just take the tight ends and the fact that there's two and kind of wash them out and take them off completely because we only go 5 deep and maybe go Michael Wilson as a wild card to potentially get because you don't want to move anybody that could be a wild card off the sheet entirely, right? So like Michael Wilson, he's getting a lot of steam. He could potentially come out and start right away at split end for this team. He could play the DeAndre Hopkins role. So he's the only guy on the team that if you take Rondell Moore, Marquise Brown, and Greg Dortch, Michael Wilson has 4 inches and 30 pounds on every single one of them. That's talking about the closest one. He's got like 50 pounds on Rondell Moore, right? So he's clearly the biggest guy on the squad. I personally believe that there's a real chance that he is a starting split end from day one. That's why I want him on here somewhere. So maybe take him out and put James Conner at 5. You guys feel all right with that?
Yeah, I definitely like Connor better. I think, again, with that quarterback uncertainty, there's going to be a lot of pressure, not a lot of time in the pocket, a lot of dump downs.
I want to move Michael Wilson up ahead of Greg Dortch, but we'll leave it where it is now. So, okay, Marquise Brown. The thing is, last year, Marquise Brown was on pace for like 150 targets, but now it's a new quarterback, new coach. So, I mean, what do you guys think?
Listen, I don't want to you did the work. You put that in. I'm not sitting here. I mean, listen, this is not a team whose passing game I'm, even remotely targeting in fantasy, and nor do I think anybody out there should be targeting these guys as anything more than maybe like bye-week filler. So I don't want to change up the color scheme that you got over here. And,
right.
I think the important thing to note is, all right, this is where you believe Marquise Brown, his level is. So for anybody drafting him, this is the assumption of what he should be getting in targets. And then this is the way the pecking order goes for the rest of the team.
Right. And that's the beautiful thing about this is that nobody knows for sure. So, when you pull up this article, hopefully they're pulling up this video and they go through and somebody might say, hey, I like what Coop said about Michael Wilson. I'm going to draft him. Or they might say, hey, I like what Britt said about Greg Dortch. So I'll move him ahead. If you really want to take it seriously, make one of these yourself at home. Everybody out there listening. So anyway,
absolutely.
Enough with the Cardinals. Let's move on to the Falcons. Here,
well, you know what? I mean, listen, Coop, we're only here. We're not here for past 3:00 in the afternoon. So we're not going to be able to go through all of these teams. I think what we should be doing is let's pay attention to the teams that have that uncertainty.
Well, the Cardinals are an easy one. The thing is, with the Falcons, we can kind of just blow right through them because I think all of us believe the top 2 targets are Drake London and Pitts, right?
Yeah, it is what it is.
And then it's Bijan, and who cares? So the Falcons are done. Like we don't need to. Some of them are going to have a deeper discussion, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd rather go down to the Panthers right now and talk about how you've got Thielen listed over there as the number 1 target, followed by Mingo and then Chark. I find that to be interesting. Explain that.
I mean, so the way I look at it, we have to, when we have these uncertain situations, brand new coach, brand new quarterback, all 3 of these players are also new to the team. You have to look at the off-field indicators, honestly, where if you're going to make arguments, one of these players historically has been the better player. including last year, where he had over 100 targets, even playing alongside Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson. He got paid the most by the team on a multi-year deal, right? And you look at what Chark got paid, you look at what Mingo, he's a second round pick, but he's a rookie. For me, with all that, including the fact that Thielen goes first in ADP in virtually every draft, to me, I have to give the benefit of doubt to Thielen. That said, the fact that all three of them are yellow tells people out there that it's not entirely certain. It'd be one thing if I had Thielen at the top and I had him green and the other guys as yellow. But here we're saying, hey, you know what? It's almost a pick your poison. And that's what it's going to look like for a lot of these ones where it's uncertain is if all three are yellow, you might want to just wait and take the guy that's cheapest on the Target Totem Pole. But I'm definitely open to hearing if you guys think somebody is destined to be the top dog here, or if you think Terrace Marshall maybe should be on the list. I know sellers would love to see that.
Yeah, the Terrace Marshall hype, I just can't buy it.
Can't do it.
I know that he's basically free in drafts, but we haven't seen anything from him over the past 2 seasons, and I don't really think, unless there's injuries, that we're going to see anything from him this year. And it's interesting to me because depending on who you ask, for one, Adam Thielen's the wide receiver 1. For another one, they've got Mingo. So I think that Mingo has a ton of upside in this offense, especially when you consider that Bryce Young actively campaigned for them to draft him, that he liked what he saw in the SEC and liked what he saw on film with him. And Thielen has kind of lost a step. I mean, he might start out the year as the wide receiver 1, but as I covered in my training camp battle articles, I think one of these younger guys takes over. And that for me very well could be Mingo.
Where are we at with DJ Chark here? Because obviously, he was in Jacksonville and it didn't work out for him. He deals with his share of injuries. But I mean, listen, he was okay in Detroit. Now you're looking at him here in Carolina. You've got him listed as third on this list, but they are obviously, again, like you said, the same color coordination. So you assume similar target share for Chark. Is he just not, in your opinion, even the potential number 1 in this offense?
I mean, I love DJ Chark. He is the quintessential paper tiger because we're talking about a guy who's 6'3". He ran a 4.34, which is like 97th percentile, and he has 1,000-yard season on his record. So this is one that I struggled with laying it out. For me, when it boiled down to who I think is most realistic to get those targets, but I mean, there's arguments to be made to move Chark to the top. That's why this is as far as what this exercise helps us with, this is the perfect team to illustrate why when it's all yellow like that, take shots on the later guys, especially if they're going later in ADP. Hayden Hurst as well. I couldn't, even though we like these other guys, I couldn't make him red because who's to say he can't get 100 targets on this team, right?
Well, especially with how Young yellow? Liked to target his tight end at Alabama, especially in the red zone.
Well, I mean, is Frank Reich going to have that same system where he's going to be targeting the tight end? Like, that's always the thing. When we go from college into the pros, the question is what's the system that we're looking at? And is Hayden Hurst going to be in a good situation? That's why, I think Scott Frankel makes some sense in the chat, just asking where Terrace Marshall is. Just because, Hayden Hurst, nicest dude in the world, 100% nicest guy in the world. But we've been waiting for him to come around and be like a legitimate fantasy tight end for a number of years. He's bounced around from team to team, and it's not happening. I mean, why are we looking at him and not, I guess maybe Terrace Marshall? Does Hayden Hurst? Are we talking about locked more targets for him than for Marshall?
So the reason I have it set up this way is that a lot of times it boils down to snaps, where there are oftentimes teams have better pass catchers in a vacuum on the roster, but they have a tight end who's just playing more snaps. Like this team, unless we think they're going to go full air raid and run 4 wide receiver sets, there's just not enough snaps for all 3 guys. So I'd honestly be more willing to take a wide receiver off if you want Terrace Marshall on. But we looked at what Frank Wright did in terms of screens and the fact that once Nick Sirianni was gone, Jonathan Taylor was on pace for like 70 targets. I personally am not taking Miles Sanders or Hayden Hurst off. That's kind of the rub there, is that do we think this team's going to go full 4 wide and find a way to get enough targets to 4 different wide receivers?
not saying it's full four wide as much as it is, more rotating
Rotation.
guys in and out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we think that they're going to rotate the tight end, I just personally think that Hayden Hurst is a guy that if they're going to pay him what they paid him, which is oddly more than a lot of tight ends got out there, then they're gonna use him. So,
All right. Well, Britt, why don't you run down, pick a team for us here? I gave us Carolina to take a look at. Who do you want to eyeball? And don't say Dallas.
No, I was actually going to go with Denver because you and I have had some conversations about Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton and who's going to be the number one guy there. You seem to think that it's Sutton because of how Sean Payton has operated his offense through the X receiver in the past and a tight end. I seem to think that it's Jerry Jeudy just because he's a better talent overall. So it's interesting how those targets are split up. So what do you think about? Just go in a little bit more on why you think that Cortland Sutton should be above Jerry Jeudy.
you talking to Howard or to me? Because I have Judy ahead.
To Howard.
Yeah, I'm the only one who thinks that Cortland Sutton is getting overlooked in a ton of drafts right now because he's the X receiver. That's what Joe Lombardi does. He forces targets to his X receiver. Even with Keenan Allen being a huge security blanket for Justin Herbert, we all know that Mike Williams saw a major uptick in targets. So it went from Michael Thomas in New Orleans to Mike Williams in Los Angeles, and now you've got Cortland Sutton as the X receiver. Jeudy thrives in the slot. You've got him listed as slot and flanker. I think that Cortland Sutton as the X receiver he's just going to see a ton of targets. I mean, Coop's got him kind of balanced here, Jeudy and Sutton. And I'm okay with that, if you're going to assess what's going to happen. But, do I think that there's enough of a difference to warrant like a 3-round separation between these guys in drafts? Not at all. So I will bypass Jeudy to take Sutton at a much bigger discount.
And that's the beauty of this sheet when you set it up, especially if you do it yourself and set it up the way that you believe. Because when I look at this, like I have Jeudy, for those that might have trouble seeing or are colorblind, I have Jeudy as green, Sutton as green, and then Dulcich as yellow, which to me says Jeudy is likely, Sutton likely, Dulcich, it's possible. If I had Jeudy at blue, like if you look at ADP and what Howard points out that Judy's going 3 rounds before Sutton, ADP would suggest that Jeudy should be blue and Sutton should be green and the Dulcich should be a maybe. Right. So me personally, if I set it up this way, that ipso facto says that Sutton at ADP should be a value. And that's why this helps me and should hopefully help our readers and listeners try and visualize what they think is possible, what they think is realistic, and then act on it based on ADP. So just the fact that Howard in his chart might have Sutton as the 1, and in that case, you're drafting Sutton in every league. But with mine, the way it's set up, it says, hey, maybe you take stabs on Jeudy, but Sutton becomes a value at ADP. And it also acknowledges that, hey, maybe Greg Dulcich is a guy in this new offense, and he has a chance. But everybody else outside of that, if you have 3 guys that are showing up as green or yellow, everybody else to me has to be orange, in which case I don't really understand why people are drafting so much Tim Patrick. That scheme has never made sense to me. Are you guys taking him at all at any point? I mean, it's kind of tough.
That's one of those coach speak things that, popcorn headline, it's the off season, it's slow. They need somebody to talk about them and their team. There's no way that I believe that Tim Patrick is going to start or have a better season than either of those 2 guys.
I want to hear the argument from Britt on Jeudy over Sutton. I think it's valid, worth discussion. Here.
So mine is more centered around how inaccurate Russell Wilson was throwing the ball downfield. And I think that Sean Payton is going to kind of reel him in and get his fundamentals back to where they need to be. And with Jeudy working out of the slot, I think that he absorbs most of that work. I also think he's a little bit better of an athlete. I saw some not so good stuff on Cortland Sutton on film last year, but it is a really thin line. I could see either one happening, but I just think that the passes are going to be shorter to avoid those downfield interceptions.
Now, Britt, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you were doing this chart, you would actually either have Dulcich at 2 or you'd have both him and Sutton the same color. Is that not how you feel about this offense to a certain degree?
Yeah, exactly. I
Yeah.
think I would have him and Sutton as the same color because there still is some uncertainty with how they're going to utilize. We've seen with one receiver and one tight end in the past, but it could very well be two receivers. We don't know until training camp happens.
Well, luckily for the sake of this discussion, it's 2 versus 1, and we're leaving it the way it is. Scott Frankel in
I wasn't asking you to change it, man. I mean, listen, that's again,
Well,
that's one of the things. If I were doing the sleeper article, the top 10 sleeper article, I would have had Cortland Sutton in there because of my belief of what it is. But he wasn't in there, and that's not it's not a knock. Like, that's the thing, is that, there are so many people who jump into fantasy, and this is why I absolutely hate Twitter, and this is why I absolutely hate putting all this stuff on social media, because you can't state your opinion on something without somebody just coming right in and just shitting all over you because you've ranked their favorite player too low, or you're not giving their favorite team enough of a look. And I think that's, so for me to have an opinion as to how I would do this, I think the takeaway for everybody out there is read the information, read the article, look at what Coop has to say, go back, read my my article on systems, and then build your own. Like, that's what we're doing here. We're not doing this, and this is always one of my big hangups also, is that people just want to be spoon-fed, cherry picking information, and just be spoon fed that. I had somebody who legit asked me, he was like asking me questions about, he's like in a slow draft and he's asking me dynasty questions and who should, if I'm looking at these two guys, this is what my build is, where am I going? And like, legit, he asked me if I could log into his team as him and set his queue.
Wow.
And I was like, ooh, what is that? Like, we're trying to make you we're trying to help you learn to be a better fantasy football player. We're trying to teach you how to digest all this. You know what? I mean, somebody could sit here and just start spewing all this nonsense about ADOT and not give you any context whatsoever. But you hear somebody say ADOT and you think, oh, well, this is important shit right now. I got to, take care of that. No, what we're doing here and what this whole discussion is all about is to help you understand the concepts and help develop your own opinions on it. If you have zero opinion whatsoever, then fine. Then take this chart and work off of that. But, I feel like everybody should have a chart like this and then make some adjustments to it. Same thing with rankings.
Exactly. If people out there want a copy of this, DM me on Twitter at Coupe Fiasco. I'll send you a copy and you can tinker with it yourself. But again, then that's why
you got to buy the draft guide. You got to show a sale of the draft guide here.
Well, I'll send him a blank copy. I'll send him a blank copy. Yeah. So you know what?
All of a sudden, Britt, you can't feed sellers tomorrow because Coop's taking food out of your baby's mouth right now.
How about this?
And
message me on the Fantasy Alarm Discord, which is for members only. Message me in Coop's. If you want a copy of this, message me in Coop's Corner. That's where we'll be talking about this. All right. So yeah, but that's the whole idea, is that, like, if I had done this myself without talking to the two of you, I might have, if I had just talked to John and Bemba, I would have had Judy as blue and everybody else as orange. Right. But because we've talked about this, we've seen all the different arguments, and that's what makes such a strong case for drafting other players, right? Because when we go through a team like the Bengals, we all agree, right? Blue, yellow or orange for Tyler Boyd, right? Like, that's what makes those guys such strong players and such strong dynasty assets as well, because you can't really, no one out there is even trying to make the argument that Tyler Boyd is within the top two, right? Or that Irv Smith is within the top two. That's what makes those players so strong. So if you see a team like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, bing, bang, blue, and you have no argument, move Jalen Waddle up. Same with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. This is how last year, if you look at last year's version, which I happen to have right here, we had a lot of those where we were looking at it and saying, hey, like, why aren't we drafting more Tyler Lockett? Why aren't we drafting more, of these guys that are T. Higgins, these guys that are top two targets? So that's the game. That's what we're playing here. One I wanted to ask you guys about, and that Scott Frankel wanted us to talk about in the chat, is Baltimore, right? Mark Andrews as blue, or maybe with Todd Monken, should he be green? Like, is he a lock for 120 targets, Mark Andrews?
I think he's a lock.
I think he is too.
Probably.
Yeah, so I got him up there. After that, the order could be anywhere. I've been a Rashad Bateman fan. Zay Flowers, first round pick, but Scott makes an interesting argument in the chat. He says, what are they paying Odell Beckham Jr. for if we think Bateman and Flowers are going to get more targets? So, in your opinion, do you think Odell should be in the 4th spot on this team or should be a little higher? Howard?
I mean, I think it's all right. I mean, listen, I think Andrews is clear cut ahead of it, but yes, I don't know which receiver is going to be the guy to pop, and I would leave it as is right now, because again, Odell Beckham, I don't know. I mean, maybe you could put him ahead of Zay Flowers, but I don't know if I want to put him ahead of Rashad Bateman. Bateman was the number 1 last year before he got hurt, before his foot injury happened. I mean, that dude was seeing crazy targets in a run first scheme. He was still seeing crazy targets, and he was putting up great numbers. I had him in a couple of leagues, and it was absolutely fantastic. So I would, for me, I would leave Bateman there. You could put Odell Beckham right in front of Zay Flowers and swap those two guys out. But I mean, again, I think we're splitting hairs here as we're waiting to see what Monken does as far as who's going to be a favorite of his on the field.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, with doing this chart, it's very hard to sit there and recognize what you want to happen versus what you think is going to happen. That's the hard part, because I think a lot of us would lean into the shiny rookie, and at times that can end up being a tiebreaker. I don't know, Brett, what do you think?
Yeah, I have Odell over Zay Flowers because even though Monken's coming in here and we know that he's going to pass more, last year the Ravens ran, I think, the 4th most 12 personnel. And I think even with Monken coming in here and with Andrews being that top target, he's going to be the guy out of the slot. It's going to be Rashad Bateman and Odell Beckham on the outside, and then Zay Flowers is going to be the odd man out.
Yeah, I had the same.
It's not that I have anything against Flowers or his ability, but unless an injury happens to one of the other two, which obviously very well could happen, I think that he's the 4th guy on the team.
I'm switching it. It is a good point. And the thing is, the fact that he's yellow doesn't mean, that keeps it on the table draft wise. Howard, one I wanted to ask you about this is one I struggled with personally, was Washington, where I looked at it. Terry McLaurin played 17 games, had exactly 120 targets last year. And then you have Jahan Dotson, Logan Thomas, Curtis Samuel in the mix, the running back. The way I have it set up is I have it McLaurin 1, Dotson 2, Logan Thomas 3, Curtis Samuel 4, Antonio Gibson 5, and I have it McLaurin set for 120, and then everybody else kind of behind that. Or sorry, McLaurin set for 100 to 120. Should he be blue, you think, or is he a lock to get 120 targets in your opinion?
I think I'm not going to say he's a lock for it, but I think he does. I think he warrants that. He's the number 1 in this offensive scheme. I would definitely look to him there. Dotson, I would leave it yellow. And then for me, I mean, it's, Logan Thomas versus Curtis Samuel. Who's going to see the most, who's going to see the touches or the targets out of those two guys? I'm not really sure how Eric Bieniemy. I mean, if Eric Bieniemy is going to bring that Chiefs offense over here, is Logan Thomas going to get like a big old Kelsey-like share of the targets? Like, is that going to happen?
Happened in 2020.
Well, Britt just shook her head. Britt, you know?
In 2020, it happened. He was the tight end 3 in fantasy football.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen this year, though. He's older. He was even talked about being potentially cut in the offseason. I think that Antonio Gibson moves up to that 3rd target. I think that he should be orange. Yeah, I agree with Scott Frankel in the chat. With McKissick gone, I would bet Gibson gets the 3rd most targets on the team. Before he even said that, that's what I was thinking when I was looking at this. So Scott and I
can't make him orange though, because you really think there's a chance that he gets 100 targets?
I think he very well could.
100
with Sam Howell.
I'll move him.
And with McKissick gone.
Sam Howell, everyone keeps telling me that he's the mobile QB that can scoot around and scramble around. So
no,
I'll move him to 2nd on this list. I can't move him. I can't move him 3rd, but I'll move him to 2nd.
Coop. You do you.
Right. But Isn't
But
it
I know if I'm
point?
drafted next to Britt, I mean, I'm just be like, oh, I'm going to take Antonio Gibson just to screw
Just
with
out
him.
of spite.
Yeah,
That's why I wrote that song for you, Howard.
I love spite
Because it's
drafting.
spite.
Spite drafting is the best. It really is.
It truly is, dude. That's why the Boston live draft for Scott Fishbowl, one of my very favorites, because it gets brutal. Let's hit one more real quick. Jacksonville Jaguars, because this one I struggled with. I have Christian Kirk first, but I know John and Pemba's been steaming up Calvin Ridley, then Evan Ingram, Zay Jones, Travis Etienne. As far as the order goes, would you shift any of that order around, or are you guys comfortable with that?
I'm comfortable with it. Britt?
I think I'm going to put Ridley ahead of Kirk, but it's just by a hair, like the tiniest hair.
Yeah.
So you can, I mean, so in that case, just leave it as is.
Yeah. So I made them both green as, hey, you know what? 100 targets for each should be fine. And the problem with that is once again, puts Ingram on the outside looking in. I'm not going to say it's not possible, but, I'm putting them at yellow and I almost put them at orange. It would have broke my heart to do so, but that's where I'm at. Do you guys think, I mean, is it possible? It's still possible, right? You can't completely rule it out.
Yeah. I mean,
it out.
They would have to increase their volume a ton though. And I just don't see that happening.
Well, anyway, folks, that's pretty much the time we have for this segment. Go on. I'm going to update this with some of the changes we've just made. It's up there now in the draft guide. Make sure you get the draft guide for this year at fantasyalarm.com/draft guide. That's right in the ticker below. So check this one out. It is one of my very favorites. And as you can see, if there are places you disagree, good, because that's how you can get an advantage in your leagues if you're right. So check that out. And if you do want a copy, hit me up on the Discord at Coop's Corner, not on Twitter. I'm not giving it to you on Twitter. Howard said no. And Britt's got to feed her baby sellers. So get in that Discord and you can get a copy of this an editable copy you can change around yourself.
Edible?
Edible,
so,
yeah.
Britt,
You're
going to
print it out.
feed this chart to sellers.
I'm going to shove it down his throat.
Shove it right down his Taysom Hill loving throat.
Taysom Hill and Terrace Marshall, I swear. Between those two, man.
All right. Well, that's all the time that we've got for you guys here today. Again, like Coop said, hit them up in the Discord and get that. We appreciate everybody here for not only viewing, but hitting that like and subscribe button over on the YouTube page. If you're watching us over at the Fantasy Alarm or the Better Sports Network YouTube page, hit that like and subscribe button for us. That's how Britt feeds her family. She feeds her family off of the dopamine that we get from likes and subscriptions. So make sure that happens. Now, big surprise for everybody tomorrow, because we're a 2-hour